Hello, hello, hello. Thank you all for waiting and thank you for joining, of course. A very good morning from not so sunny Dublin. At least here in Dublin it's morning. I noticed that there's people from all over calling in, which is great. So welcome to the webinar Sales Champion 2.0. Now why 2.0? Because the previous one was called 1.0, so that only makes sense. Now we're having a record amount of people with us today, which is nice. It keeps me and Madeline on our toes. Madeline is here. She's going to help out with the chat. So if you've got any questions during the webinar, feel free to just pop in a question and we'll be trying to help you out as well as we can. This morning, you all, or earlier today, you all received an email with a link to both videos that will be used during the webinar. We did this because we know that sometimes there are problems with connection, especially if a video playing with the audio and the sound and everything. So hopefully that will help you out there. After the webinar, we will also be sending you the whole
call recording is on.
So, the aim of today's webinar really is to get every single person in every single department, in every single hotel of Best Western involved in the sales process. Now, I can hear some of you think, oh God, sales, yuck. Well, I can't blame you. Like sales has gotten a pretty bad reputation over time. Now, when people think about sales, they imagine those people calling you while you're having dinner with your family trying to sell you some, I don't know, life insurance or something. Now, I'm happy to say we're not all like this. Now, therefore, I want to start by showing you our first brief video about the changing faces of salespeople.
Cheesy, intrusive,
pushy, dishonest.
They're all slick,
There's some guy in a suit,
all buttoned up.
somebody who's selling you something you don't need.
They're hoping it's changing. I'd say over the course of the last 5 years, a number of people in this profession are trying to elevate it because salespeople are professionals.
So I think this kind of project can change the perception of sales. It can really show that the best salespeople aren't people who are trying to put something down your throat.
Should I be looking at the camera, or should we go out of our way to make sure that we create these bonds with our customers, just creating real relationships?
You can't make a sale without your team. We're the front lines, we're setting up the meetings, but we rely on our team, our account executives to go ahead and convert those meetings into sales.
Everyone sells. If you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, every day you're selling what it is that you do. And it's about relationships and it's about human connection.
I think sales at the end of the day is about solving problems, it's about being compassionate, it's about listening and empathizing.
Sort of change the face of sales, maybe stop looking for the same thing. And so I think we all just need to have a little bit of a different lens when we look at salespeople.
So there you have it. Allow me to admit it here in public. Now, I am Ward de Mulder, and I'm a salesperson. Or shall we call my title from now on Solutions Provider? That sounds way cooler, and I'm very proud of it. So, as we just saw, all joking aside, as we just saw, the role of the sales managers, salespeople in general, has shifted a lot over the last few years. And it is something that we still are confronted with every day and in everything that we do. To be honest, from my point of view, embracing sales from a hotel perspective is very simple, basic anyway. You just have to start from the following thought, like we saw in the video. Everybody sells somehow. Now, this is an overview of what we're going to cover today. It's going to be in 3 parts. The last part is actually quite short. So the first part is everybody sells. So we're going to be more into detail about what we just mentioned. The second part, we're going to dig into what a sales culture is and how we deal with it in our hotels. And the third part is Best Western Value Proposition. All very exciting. Now, the first part, everybody sells. Now, I'm not sure which one of you are familiar with the story, everybody sells strawberries. Now, I know you're all on mute, so you cannot really answer me, so I'm just going to assume some of you are, some of you aren't. That's going to be the easiest, I suppose. Now, in short, it's a story about a previous Park Plaza president, and his name was James Levinson, and he gave like a famous speech about 44 years ago. That was in 1974. Now, for those who haven't heard about the speech, it's about he himself coming from like a pure corporate background, was suddenly like put in charge of operations at a then struggling Park Plaza hotel in New York, very famous hotel. And he wanted like, you know, coming from operations and all, he said like, okay, I'm thinking numbers, coming from corporate, he's thinking numbers. He goes like, okay, bottom line, how can we get more income? Oh, well, we just sell more. So he wanted all his employees to become sellers or upsellers. Now, it didn't go very well for him. Well, not initially anyway. Like, for example, like the waiters like that were challenged, and they said like, okay, like, listen, waiters, like, we're going to do some upselling. We're going to be upselling desserts. They said to him, it's like, how can we like upsell desserts? Like, you know, nobody wants them. Like, everybody says they're on a diet. And then Levinson, like, you know, James, he said like, well, just sell them strawberries. But sell them something. And like, you know, by situations like that, he soon realized that for his staff to be able to sell or upsell something, it was really difficult for them because they didn't quite know what they were selling. You know, like the receptionists couldn't think strawberries and upsell rooms because they'd never seen the rooms. They'd never been inside, like, you know, like a suite. The waiters, they couldn't offer like extra drinks or different, like, you know, concoctions, like, you know, because they didn't possess the skills to do so. Or like the bellman, for example, like he didn't know what singer was on that night in the same hotel. So he couldn't recommend anything when guests sought entertainment. So, like, what it means is like for staff or employees to be able to sell, they've got to know the product first. So James had a problem there. So what is he going to do about it? He said like, well, I'm going to focus on 3 core areas. See, like on the screen, know your guests, the first one. Second one is like, know your product or your services that you offer. And know what makes you unique. I see quite a few more people joining us, so welcome all. We've only just gotten started. We are actually in part 1, everybody sells, and we're going to start looking into knowing your guests, our first subsection. Right, so know your guests. Well, James, he started from the bottom, working himself up. He gave all his employees name tags. And he encouraged them, like, greet everybody. Greet each other. Like, everybody you run into in the hotel. Like, just say hi. Give them a big smile and say hi. Because his theory was, like, once they got accustomed to saying hi to each other, once they got to know each other, it will improve their confidence, but also, like, their experience. And then having developed these skills, they are going to more freely interact with guests. They're going to recognize the needs of the guests, and they're going to like be able to offer like solutions accordingly. Because what James said was like, most people will take recommendations. So do not be afraid to make one if you feel it's right for the guest. Why is that? Well, it's actually very simple. Like, people in general buy on emotions. People like to buy from people they like. Which takes us like to the second core area that he wanted to focus on, was like staff, employees, like we've got to know the product that we sell. Because once James discovered that these employees had an experience like the hotel products and services, like he set out to change that. Like he was going to make sure that, for example, what he did, he said like, okay, receptionists are going to visit all the room types. They have to know exactly what's where and when. Doormen, they were going to eat in the restaurant, try different dishes. Waiters, they were going to spend time as a guest in the bar and learning about the different wines, toxicology, mixology, sorry, not toxicology. Yeah. And this can be done like for all departments. And as part of it, even like as an induction training for like, new staff starting with the company. And not only in their own department, but also know what your colleagues are up to. What do they do? Because having new people starting and spend some time with the different departments, it makes that everybody knows the brand. It makes like that we all know what we stand for and what we have to offer. In other words, we will discover what our story is. And then we can look at every single department and make sure that they also know what they're selling, what their story is. Employees, all of us, we're soon going to become our biggest fans. And we're not going to have any problems recommending it to our guests. So it highlights like the importance, like, where we can like develop more ourselves and become like true hotel professionals. Because that's what we all want, isn't it? Now soon we're going to feel part of something bigger, like by putting some effort towards our guests, and we're going to feel valued in our job. It's going to be all done in a relatively easy and fun way. Now the third area we were looking at is our uniqueness. How do we differentiate ourselves? What makes us different from others? Now, the great thing about Best Western hotels, or one of the great things about Best Western hotels, is that each hotel is unique. It's got its own character. Every hotel has got its own story to tell. And stories is what drives people to your hotel. Like, so how we go about this, like we've got to embrace what makes our hotel special. It could be a location, it could be unique check-in options, it could be a fabulous decor, it could be like a nice personal welcome upon arrival, or it could be a combination of all of them. Like, we've got to make sure that everybody who works in a hotel knows what their story is and are able to bring it to the guests. As I say, one thing that sets us apart from the competition already is being part of Best Western. All Best Western members, we play an extremely important part. We play a critical role in representing the brand towards our customers. So it's really important that we are like consistent and that we are clear in what the company's like Best Western brand values are. Because the more effective we are going to be, like once we know what we're doing, what we stand for, we're going to be much more effective in delivering what we call a brand promise towards our customers. We're going to talk more about brand promise in a moment. Because brand, what is a brand? Like a brand is the image that people have of your company or product. It's who people think that you are. I like a nice quotation. It's by Z. Frank. I don't know if you've heard about him. Now he said, it's the emotional aftertaste that comes after an experience, even secondhand, with a product, service, or a company. That's nice, isn't it? Because, like, in the end, like, a brand, it does not explicitly say to people, stay at my hotel. No, it says, like, this is what we stand for. This is why we exist. This is why we do the things we do. This is why we are different from the competitors. And it is why we matter. And if you agree, and if you like us as a brand, please stay in our hotels worldwide and recommend us to your friends. Whoa, that's a lot of color on the screen, isn't it? Okay. Now, what are we looking at? I know you can't answer because you're still on mute, and I'm going to keep that for a while. We see a lot of like worldwide brands, international brands. Like, I bet you, every single one of you will know at least 80 to 90% of all the brands on there, if not all of them. Why? Why is it that, like, regardless whether we are like in the Middle East or in Africa or Russia or like, here just around the corner, we all know these brands? Well, simple, because they are very recognizable. Like, no matter where you are in the world, the logo will be the same. You will always like, know the golden arches like of McDonald's, regardless of where you are. But also like it's not just like recognition. It's also, they have very clear brand values. They know exactly what they stand for. We know exactly what they do. Because why? Because they know who their customers are and how to focus on them. And they also know who their customers are not. The reason why I'm mentioning this is like because it's very important that we try not to be everything for everybody. To be successful in business, we've got to understand what our brand values are and which are our customers who are going to benefit from them. And the same goes exactly for our own iconic international global brand, Best Western Hotels and Resorts. Just by being linked to the Best Western family, so many people are recognizing you and as a global quality product, and business is driven towards our hotels because of this brand recognition, but also because like a lot of people are very loyal to the Best Western Hotels and Resorts brand worldwide. Now we're going to be playing our next video soon, so like if you have to set it up like through your YouTube links that were sent earlier, like you can do that now. The very orange person on the right-hand side of your screen, his name is actually Simon Sinek. Now, I like Simon Sinek, like, I follow him on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But he's one of the people like that understands the power of knowing your brand more than most people do. And that's why I want to share like this clip of his with you, where he's talking about the why. And I hope you all enjoy it. It's coming up now.
I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because it's easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done. That's how most sales done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We always perform for our clients to do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Right. So, first of all, apologies for the interruption in the video. It seems like every time somebody joins us, like it stops the video for a bit. So, apologies for that. We will know better for next time. We will keep this in mind. Also, I'm looking at the chat, and I was just told that there are 2 McDonald's logos, which is good to know, and there goes my credibility. But yes, I'll have to do my homework there. Now, talking of what we were at, like we were looking at Simon Sinek's and his golden circle, as I call it. Very interesting stuff, don't you think? Now, how do we apply this to Best Western? Because you have the how. Now, the how is interesting because it refers to how what we have is better than the competitors offer. So how do we set ourselves apart? How are we different from any other product or service? And maybe even like how do we deliver that product in a different way or deliver the service to the customers? Let's suppose for now that we, Best Western Hotels and Resort brand, are one of the organizations that Simon Sinek describes, like companies that focus on only what and how. So starting from the outside to the inside, but stopping at the how. So in this case, we'll start with like, okay, what? Well, we have great meeting facilities. We have fabulous rooms, and we have many amenities. That's nice. Then we go to the how you can book your conference well in advance, and we will take great care of you. Which is great, but what's wrong with that approach, according to Sinek? Well, it doesn't really differentiate us or create like a reason for the customer to do business with us. It's like, it's the same pitch as every other hotel. Most of our customers know that we have meeting rooms and I book in advance. So it becomes a bit of like, okay, what else is in it for me? And it's the what's in it for me. If the product that you're offering is not really relevant or gives a surplus to the customers, it has no added value for them. So once again, like it's very much question of like you've got to know who your guests are and who are not your guests. Like so, a much better way of doing it in this case, like using the golden circle, would be let's start from the middle. Let's start from the why. Okay, so for example, why? Well, because at Best Western Hotels and Resorts, we believe in the importance of true hospitality. These values, they shine through in everything that we undertake. There are no 2 Best Western properties the same. And that uniqueness is central to our hotel personalities and your individual guest experiences. How? Well, we do this by creating a happy, safe, and comfortable environment for both staff and guests, constantly raising the bar. And then we get to the what. Well, the gorgeous hotel that you were thinking of staying in is one of them. Go check it out. It's much more convincing, isn't it? Which takes us to our story, right? So far, we've looked at like, know your guests, know your products, and know what makes you unique, like your why that I was just talking about. So now we've got everything to tell our story. So let's think about how to build a compelling story for Best Western that's relevant to your audience, like we just did. What do we have to take always into consideration when we're creating this story? We've got to focus on the why. Start from the inside of the circle. Practice it. Practice and realize what's your reason for doing what you do every day. Shift from, get away from rates, dates, and space. Very often that's not what the client wants to hear. Stay relevant. Don't give them information that's not of interest to your guests. We call it feature dump. Don't tell them, we have this and we have this and we have this, and the guests couldn't care less because they don't need it. Stick to what's important for the guests and what the guests might be needing. Now ask questions, because in order to figure out what's relevant for what your guests' needs are, this is a very simple way to do it. Just ask. There we go again. So focus on the why, shift from rates, dates, and space to customer needs, and ask questions. Build a compelling story that is relevant to your audience. Okay. You'll be happy to hear we've finished our first part, and we are now going to be looking at the second part of today's webinar, and that is called Sales Culture. Now, this is the overview of what we're going to look at today. First of all, what is a sales culture? Then we'll go on to why is this so important for us? Because why am I talking about this? Well, there is a reason. Sales opportunities for the front and back office. We're going to look at how focus on training can help us embrace a sales culture and how to enhance our customers' experience. And finishing off with a few nice tips to empower your employees, and that's more focused towards the management. So, sales culture. We all have to start thinking sales. What is a sales culture? Well, as it says on the screen, it's an environment in which every engaged team member understands, supports, and takes specific actions to help prospective and current guests choose your hotel. And as a result, it's going to help the property gain more business and better, more focused business. I think that all makes sense, but why is this so important? Well, there's a few advantages attached to embracing this sales culture and learning about how to create it, because it's going to create sales solutions for you, but also sales solutions specifically for your prospective and your current guests. It's great because your actions that you're taking with regards to the sales culture is going to affect your hotel sales results, of course. For the guests and for the buyers, it is great because you're providing a unique buying experience. So what does that mean? Well, when you connect with the guests, on an emotional level, what we talked about earlier, it increases loyalty, and it also creates guest satisfaction. And last, but definitely not least, all employees playing an important part in the revenue generation, which is good because we're all part of the same goal we're working towards. Which is all great. So what actually happens if we don't embrace the sales culture? If we just let it all be, well, whoa, bad weather ahead. It looks a bit like the weather we are currently having outside of our window right now, to be honest, in the middle of some sort of storm. So if you hear any wood cracking and all on the outside, that's just a storm. It's not us. Right, so basically the risks, if we don't change, they're virtually the opposite of the advantages that we were just talking about. If you don't embrace a sales-focused culture, first and foremost, you're going to experience a loss of business and revenue. I think that speaks for itself. It's going to give your competition the opportunity to go out and target your clients. Because if we don't do it, well, you can bet your bottom dollar they will. Now, if you don't have a long-term strategy, if you just think, hey, listen, like, oh, we're too busy, we cannot accept groups, we're too busy, we cannot accept these RFPs and whatever. Like, think about the future, think about, like, when times change, because if you don't have a loyal base of customers, it's going to affect your long-term strategy. Now, when you approach the last one, when you approach like sales, when you think it's only like order taking, well, you're not controlling your own sales destiny. So order taking, with that I mean, it's like waiting for the bookings to come in. If you just go, hey, yeah, no, we're doing well, like bookings are coming in, like why would we bother with sales? Well, that's great for the time being, but like, it's not going to stay forever. The strategy is definitely in place. Okay, so here is like, this is only just one slide. I want to focus like on the front office and back office. Now, why? Because front and back office teams, they come face-to-face with guests like every day. And it maybe not face-to-face for the back office, but like they are in direct contact with the guests every day. So, which means that both of these teams have great opportunities to sell to guests. And they can do that by like, they can upselling a room type, for example, like the think strawberries. Here we go again. Like make sure that your prices, your room types, but also make sure like what your competitors are charging, and what they're up to as well. They're like the front line, so like they can be the ones converting an inquiry when somebody's just wanting to get some information, like, hey, how we convert these people into like a booking. They can also like rebook a client at checkout, but also at check-in. And finally, like, when they are like, looking at the arrivals list and everything, like they are the ones who are able to identify like online travel agents or bookings that come with no corporate rate plan and elite members, and then they can use like all fantastic opportunities that you have to connect with our corporate clients from Best Western, like, sign them up for a business advantage or, like find out where they are, contact their agencies, and make sure they become loyal customers. Like, it's front and back desk, but it can turn into a sales machine. Like the front desk, for example, they can flag like relations that were perhaps booked via an OTA and ask questions like, what company are you with? Or are there other people maybe in your company that also travel? Or would you be interested in establishing a corporate rate with us? Or they could go like, hey, who do I speak with at your company regarding corporate rates? Or who is the decision maker, like your group booker? Simple questions also, like when will you be returning? Were you thinking about, staying in the area again? Like, maybe we can offer you like, a great deal, like, as a returning guest. Or can I sign you up for a loyalty program? Let's not forget about that one. So many options both for front office and back office sales team. Now, a great training program is critical to a sales-orientated mindset for the whole team. As it says on the screen, like any training program should include, first of all, processes and procedures, of course. Every hotel has to have a clear standard operating procedures, like a manual of sorts. Another great idea is to create standard greetings, not just to guests and staff, but to everybody you run into. Like we have, like in the office here, like every morning we make it a point to come and greet everybody. Hey, hello, how are you doing? You there? Hey, hello. And it creates like you talk and you mention like, oh, hey. You feel welcome, and it's very important, like, that you don't just see it as a place of work. It's a place where you're creating something beautiful. Now, it's very important, like for employees, as we mentioned before, that they get like an in-depth tour of the hotel. Where they get to see every area, even and specifically, like once you've done like renovations after that, like. Do it again, like, or once you've made some changes. Oh, I like this one. Visit your competition sets. Like, does your staff, and do we all know how much, for example, the breakfast costs at the nearest competitor's hotel? Interesting to know these things. I would also suggest to prepare scripts for reservations, because when you can stick to a script, like, you're not losing thread, because sometimes it's easy to get sidetracked in the middle of a conversation. And it will also help you overcoming common objections. So, sales culture, how do we go about enhancing the customer's experience? Like, at the end of the day, if we all, like, train, like, all staff, you know, from breakfast waiters to maintenance to housekeeping to front desk, like literally all of the staff, and we all think sales, or shall I say think strawberries, like, it's going to improve the customer's experience. You know, customers are going to love spending time in your hotel, and they're going to love returning to your hotel. And they're going to splash it all over social media, which is fantastic. We're all like this. Like, for me, I've got like this beautiful hotel here, like in the Northern Ireland. It's called the White Horse Hotel. Every night I stay there, like, before going to bed, I will find like freshly baked cookies on my nightstand. I mean, how sweet is that? Love it, love it, love it. Okay, so back to business. On to the next slide. Success. Oh, we all like success. When we all feel empowered, there is nothing stopping us from becoming the ultimate sales champions. So how do we lift ourselves up to that level? Like, you know, we spoke about understanding our guests and giving the recognition, knowing your services and products at the hotel, our uniqueness, you know, what makes our department or our hotel different from the competition. So how do we get there? Like, you know, who's going to give us that extra push? Well, that's why you have management for. These are a few tips for the management. Like, you know, for management as well, it's super important to understand the importance of empowered employees. Because empowered employees, they're going to be able to make decisions, accomplish goals without the constant supervision and direction. By thinking strawberries, here are some ways how management can empower employees. Right. First one is demonstrate that you value your employees. Like, it's important, because when we know that we are valued, we can repeat this behavior with the customers. Lead by example. Like, you share your sales-focused culture, vision, you know, like, because if the team doesn't know what the idea is behind the whole sales-focused culture, like, if we don't know, like, how are we supposed to live it, how are we supposed to go by it, you know? That's why it's important for management to be transparent, like, just as a part of the culture, you know, because without all of us as employees, like, you know, if we're not involved, there is no real sales culture. Now, our next point is pretty straightforward, I hope. Trust in your employees, you know, build trust with your employees, like, you know, and vice versa. Then we're going on to like empower employees to make a decision, like, you know, like, think of some ways then you can give your employees like that little bit more autonomy, you know, even when you're not there, like, you know, it could be like in reception, it could be like maybe giving like the power to give, like, you know, like, I guess, a better rate or a compensation or a voucher or something, like, you know, like, and think about like what would things go so horribly wrong if your employee was faced with a price comparison if you weren't there. So it's all things to think about, you know, you can take into account when you're developing, you know, your own sales culture. But the last point is provide constructive feedback. Like, if you think that about 69% of employees say they would work harder if they felt that their efforts were recognized, make a big difference, wouldn't it? Okay, great. So that was part 2. I hope you're all still with us. Hope I'm not boring the socks off you. Now, if you've got any questions, please let us know. If we don't have time at the end of the webinar to address your questions, what we will do is we can put all the questions together with the answers, and we will send them to each all of you. So, if there's any questions, let us know. Even after the webinar, you go oh God, I forgot to ask that. Feel free to let us know. We're always happy to help you out there. Okay. Now, a final part of today's webinar, so we're almost there, guys, is part 3, and it's about selling the best Western value proposition. So, once we achieve to better know our guests, our products, our services, what makes us unique? What makes Best Western so unique? Where are the objections? We're selling the Best Western value proposition. So we need to understand, first of all, the significance of the Best Western brand in building sales at our hotel. We need to be able to define what are our Best Western brand characteristics and values. Your brand is everything. As a result, it's imperative that you are able to define what it actually stands for. You've got to identify what's your target audience and what they want. And you've got to be able to tell them, tell your guests or future guests or possible guests, why you are better than your competitors. And I think it's always a good idea to come up with a short statement, that describes your brand purpose. Be able to effectively position the brand value the customers have. On the next slide, I've given an overview of some of our Best Western brand values. I mean, I'm hoping that you're familiar with most of them. I'm trusting that you are. If you are not, that's a great opportunity as well, because it means it's going to be your next task to find out about all of these and embrace them, because they are what makes us all special. So you see how they're linked as separate puzzle pieces, on their own, they mean quite a bit, but once you've put them together, they are going to become relevant to the link that you're going to be offering for your customers' needs. And I want to pick a few out because, there's quite a few of them, the world's biggest hotel family. We've all heard this. In fact, with over 4,000 hotels globally, we are a very well-recognized brand with great coverage, spread all over the globe, and with distribution channels. TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence. Well, it is a designation achieved by over 55% of our hotels. It means that you have maintained a rating of at least 3 out of 4 on TripAdvisor, which is such a great achievement, especially compared to other hotel groups. Best Western Hotel Rewards Program, we all love it. Points never expire. Best Western Rewards exclusive member rates. Worldwide free night redemption. Status match, no catch, match the status of other hotel loyalty programs. Well, so you can see, we've got a lot to offer our guests. So, you can see how these brand attributes is going to help you build your own story, for any sales discussions with prospective customers that you may have in the future. And hopefully will have. Oh, going too fast there. Okay. So what does that all mean? Well, value proposition. Well, as it says on the screen, your value proposition needs to be clear and relevant to your customers. We talked about this, the relevancy, don't feature them, don't give them stuff that they're not interested in. But it could be as small as recommending a value proposition. It is a talk. We all sell. It could be as small as I say, as recommending an item on a restaurant menu. Or it could be as big as making a booking for a whole group of 50 people that want to stay at your hotel. The main thing about the value proposition is you've got to build it for yourself. But keep in mind, it's got to be relevant, it's got to have value, and it has to show how you are uniquely different from anybody else offering the same product or service. Take it back, share it with your team and work on it, practice it. Take some time out to do this. And like normally, like a value proposition is something short. It's like, hey, this is us. This is what we do. Like it should be read and understood in about 5 seconds. As I say, like that's something I would advise practicing on alone or in group, because it will always great to get feedback from your colleagues or maybe your line managers. Like practice, rehearsal, and you will get there. Now, what's going to help us as well? So we have the Best Western attributes, but being part of Best Western also gives you some great sales tools. I've got them here lined up. Once again, I really, really hope you are familiar with these. If not, I'll be happy to go over this, like, more on a personal level or in detail. First one, Business Advantage. It's a program that makes us the biggest sales team in the world. And the great thing is, like, we are going to have a webinar on this very soon. So watch this space. Mentioned the Best Western Rewards program, which you'll all be very familiar with. We also receive like regular newsletters like Best Western News Now. We've got like, as we mentioned before, the Best Western brand values. And of course, like, as a team, like, we do get around a lot. Like, we have some attendance, like, trade shows, like in Madrid, Berlin, Lisbon, Dubai, Cape Town, London, like, like we do attend and being part of brand, that's great because like you also have like, you're recognized all over and, you're part of like a big distribution chain. So bam, I think now, if you can embrace all this information that we've been talking about, you might have to like, review a few things because I'm known for speaking really fast. So hopefully you got everything that I told you, and I always have this weird accent, I know. But I think if you can embrace it and the whole team can embrace it, like, we're all ready to become the ultimate sales champion. So, I really, really hope that this webinar was of interest to you, and I really look forward to receiving any more questions that you may have. A few statistics I want to leave with you before we finish off completely. Why is it so important that we get this all right? Like we're talking to these guests. Well, if you bear in mind that 60% of a client's purchasing journey is already complete before even interacting with a salesperson. That's why it's so important that we need to create this emotional bond, because emotional thing is twice as powerful than just giving them facts and figures. Once you made that connection, with the person you're talking to, it can make all the difference. And if you bear in mind that, like on a daily level, like approximately 27 million pieces of content are shared online. Clients do not necessarily need all the information putting out there. Like, this once again proves our point, like, make it relevant. So that's just a few reasons why it really matters to get it right and make that connection with the guest. And with this, we have come to the end of our webinar. Now, I sincerely hope you enjoyed it, and I really hope that, you got something out of it. And if you didn't, I'd love to get your feedback and see, how we can do better next time, For the questions, as I said, we haven't got enough time answering today. We're going to put them all together and answer them, separately, and then send a complete list of all the missing questions with the answers. And that concludes it. I have to say, good morning, good afternoon, I don't know, but thank you all for joining in any case, and I really look forward to hearing of all of you. Thank you.